Good day everyone and welcome to Exile News, the weekly show that brings you all the important news and informations on Path of Exile. And this week is really packed. First off, we got the announcement for a 3.0 expansion which is called The Fall of Oriath, and it's going to bring a lot of new stuff to the game, and you can check out the trailer here or read about pretty much the same things on these sites, except ZGD, which has some exclusive information having been at the GGG headquarters the week the news were shown to everyone. We'll check out the landing page. First off, it's Act 5, The Fall of Oriath. This is the new full-fledged act that GGG has brought or will bring to the game, and it's pretty amazing. It contains snow, it contains all kind of new bosses and gods, and we'll see about that in a moment. Part 2 is what GGG calls the new 5 acts, and that is because the game, instead of being 5 acts repeated 2 times, because GGG said they would remove Cruel, now we have 5 acts and then another set of 5, which is not as different difficulty, is just scaling overall, and pretty much the Act 6 is going to be a sort of remake of the Act 1, Act 7 it works for Act 2 and so on and so forth. The difference is that it's not just a reskin, the acts have been pretty much differentiated, and you will follow different paths, you will see different zones, or you will see the previous zones, except that you see the effect that you had going there. GGG likes to make the example of the Fated Pool, which is corrupted in your first playthrough, and then you go, when you go in it in Act 6, you will end up in the Radiant Pool instead, because you've cleaned the corruption in your first playthrough. So it's pretty much one single difficulty with 10 acts, and this is absolutely amazing. The acts, they say they feel pretty different between themselves, so we shouldn't be too much worried about that. The levels are going to be pretty much the same, so you will end up in maps pretty much at the same level. So before we used to do 4 acts by 3 times, which is pretty much 12 acts. Now it's going to be 10, but they say that Act 5 is actually longer than any other acts, so it's going to be pretty much the same time-wise and level-wise, although we still don't know how much the leveling is going to be impacted. And you can see Act 6 named The Rising Tide. It's nice that GGG has given names to the new acts. I don't know if that's going to stick or if it's just for publishing and all the kind of stuff. We'll see about that, but anyway, if you want to know more about Act 6, ZGD has pretty much down all of the progression, so I recommend checking his channel out. We're going to have Act 7, Lord and Legion, and it's speculated by the community that Greyhost might be the boss of this act, or maybe it's going to be one of the bandits, depending on which one you help. Still, we don't know how the bandits are going to work, so that's all up in the air for now. Act 8, Eclipse, is going to be about the fight between Solaris and Lunaris, but also beneath the earth there's something else, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. These 2, by the way, are 2 of the major gods, and there's Act 9, the Reunion, which we don't know much about, and Act 10, where we return to Oriath once again, and again more of this act is going to be revealed soon in the coming weeks. And there's also a new way to personalize your character, which is by claiming the power of the gods. So there's a new system called the Pantheon system, which allows you to pretty much steal power from the gods, which are going to be bosses between the Act 6 and Act 10, so in the second part of the game, and basically slaying them in a particular way. They say that it's about the story, so we'll see how that works. But basically you gain access to 1 defensive buff, and there's 4 major gods you can use. Actually, we can see that better here. There's the 4 major gods appear, the Brine King, the Lunaris Lady, the Solaris Lady, and 1 which has not been revealed yet. And there's 12 minor gods down here. This one looks like Tukohama, this one looks like a spider, maybe, I don't know, Black Death has become a god. Wouldn't be too much surprising. And yeah, basically you can have 1 buff out of the 4 major ones and 1 buff out of the 12 minor ones on yourself at the same time. These are all defensive buffs and are not build defining, so you can change them every time you want in the city, and GGG is planning for those as well when designing new boss fights. Also, these buffs can be upgraded by slaying more unique monsters that you can find in maps, so there's actually a reason to progress beyond the story, even if you don't really like mapping too much. About the skills, we don't really know much yet. There are new skills that are coming, but GGG hasn't teased any of those yet, so I really can't wait for this because it's definitely going to be really interesting, and there's going to be, of course, a lot of new uniques. And the game is going to be rebalanced, so this is all up in the air for now. And as far as the timeline goes, late April, early May is going to be probably the beta for the Fall of Oriath, and between June and July is going to be the full release for the 3.0 update. GGG is hoping for June, but they aren't really sure, so they're giving us a time frame, and up until then you can play the Challenge League, which starts on March 3, and it's called Legacy. So the Legacy Challenge League is pretty much, they call it the ultimate flashback event. So when playing the league, you might find these league stones, which are corrupted, so you cannot modify them, and some have no modifiers, some actually have a modifier, and they have charges, so every time you use them, it consumes 1 charge, and it makes the next area you go in with the properties that it said. So every league stone is related to one specific league. Of course, you can see this one as Perandus, so you will find a Perandus chest, and the additional mods will give you Perandus treasury and a Perandus coffer. Of course, you might just use the perfect combination of those to make your map, for example, really interesting, and you can use a maximum of 3 at a time. So here they are. It's a bit of a shame that you cannot have the mods on always, like when you can choose just 3 mods, and maybe then afterwards use these league stones to give them more properties, but you will have to just use these stones to actually get into this specific league. So we'll see how that works, and it will really all depend on the drop rate of these league stones, because if it's too low, you will not really be able to experience a full flashback event, which would be a shame. The league uniques are going to be kind of buffed. We saw something about that last week, and you will also be able to find the old items in their original form while playing those leagues, so that's going to be absolutely amazing, especially for collectors. And speaking about collectors, there are going to be relics. So a relic is pretty much an item like this. You can see it's a face breaker, and it's the unnerfed version, so it's a legacy item. It can go up to 1000 more unarmored physical damage, while right now it goes to up to like 600, 650, something like that. So it's really a lot powerful, and the name and the item as well are changing chromes. You might notice it's really it's very subtle, but it's there. So it's pretty much a really rare collector edition item, which you can find pretty much anywhere, I think, playing. I'm definitely going to bet this is just map only, and it looks like there are over 40 different relics to find, and there's definitely going to be a challenge related to those as well. And speaking about challenges, there are going to be the usual 40 challenges. Completing 12, you will receive the Legacy Footprint effect. Completing 24, you will receive the Legacy Weapon effect. And completing 36, you will receive the Legacy Portal effect. It's going to be the same microtransaction every single league. I surely hope not, because it's getting a bit standard, and everything that gets standard kind of make people lose interest in that. But anyway, there's going to be the totem pole as well, so if you're going for that, good luck. So self-found mode, we already saw everything about that. Balance changes, well, it's still early to see all of the balance changes, but GGG say that there's going to be more support for cold and elemental builds near the ranger, and also mana nodes are going to kind of be improved a little bit. Close, staff and swords passive clusters, one-handed weapons are going to be buffed across the boards, so that's going to be interesting as well. And there's going to be a new additional threshold jewels. Some of those are actually really interesting. For example, this one, which increases physical damage, and if the threshold is met, Ethereal Knives fires 10 additional projectiles and fires them in a Nova. So that's something that might be really interesting to see. This one converts your Glacial Hammer damage pretty much all to cold damage, as well as the splash damage. I mean, some of those can be really interesting. This one is for Freezing Pulse, and you fire 2 additional projectiles pretty much for free. So using 2 of those, which is the limit, will give you a free GMP on your Freeze Pulse, also increasing the damage and everything else. So that's something that can be like build enabling, I guess. There's new supporter packs. This one looks really ugly, to be fair, but still I'm keeping myself for the big 3.0 ones, so we'll see about those. And we already see that it's coming on March 3, so get ready, because that's really like 1 week and a half away. So be prepared, prepare your builds, prepare everything else, and enjoy these new leagues. We also got a couple new updates. For example, we got 6 new Rogue Exiles, and this is a preview video if you want to watch it. Couple of those use bows, couple of those use totems. One uses actually the Ballista totem, which looks pretty interesting, especially if it's poison. That might be really strong. And there's one that uses Essence Drain, which is probably going to be really deadly in late game maps. It looks like Breach will make it into the game as a core game mechanic. Of course, GGG is going to tweak the spawn rates of Breaches and of Wool Nettle and Chayula to be a little less rare. Of course, still rarer, but I mean, otherwise you will never ever see them. Like, you basically never see Chayula right now, so... And it's really nice that we get this type of encounters right into the game, because kind of like strong boxes, you can decide to open them or not. So if you don't want to engage into the core, you just evade going over the end. And of course, couple items will be kind of rebalanced. Wisdom in Action, the Hand of Wisdom in Action is definitely going to be nerfed, but that's going to happen in 3.0, because that's when the big double dipping changes will happen. So the hand itself might not have to be nerfed too much, might not even have to be nerfed at all. Instead, in the 2.6 league, it will still be really strong, so if you're planning on a really strong build, that's definitely something you can do. And we also got a developer interview with Blake, which is an environmental artist, and it's really timed, I guess, for the Act 5 announcement, because a lot of environment has gone down into that act. As we can see, for example, for this screenshot, which is the screenshot from one of the zones in Oriath, when there's snow, finally. Very nice pattern overall, and they said the Act 5 is really amazing, as it brings kind of a city which, instead of being ruined like pretty much everything else in the game, has a feeling of actually being lived in, so that's going to be pretty amazing. And while we are on the screenshot, last thing, we can see the Globe Girls are back, albeit a bit different, but still really nice. I personally don't like this part of the interface, like in the flasks, it's kind of a bit too squared. But still, really nice news this week. There's a lot of content, if you haven't been keeping up, that you have to read. Anyway, that was all for this week. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and a comment down below. Also, if you want to remain updated every week, be sure to subscribe to my channel. So that was all. I've been your host Zorzo, and I'll see you guys the next time.